It was a warm Lagos afternoon when Daniel pushed back his chair in the small buka-style restaurant. His mind was far from the spicy jollof and grilled fish before him. He had been lost in thought since morning, and as he walked out into the noisy street, he didn't even notice he'd left his wallet sitting right there on the table. Minutes later, a thin young woman wandered in. Her name was Layla, and life had been unkind to her. She had slept under the bridge for weeks, surviving mostly on sachet water and whatever scraps she could find. The aroma of Daniel's abandoned food hit her like a punch in the stomach. Her mouth watered instantly. She glanced around. Nobody was watching. Quietly, she slipped into the seat Daniel had vacated, her eyes fixed on the steaming plate. Hunger beat down her conscience. With trembling fingers, she picked up a spoon and began to eat, praying nobody would chase her away. She was mid-bite when the door swung open and Daniel returned, patting his pocket as if searching for something. His eyes landed on her, and his mood switched instantly. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" His voice cut through the chatter of the restaurant. "Is this your food?" Layla froze, eyes wide, spoon still in her hand. "I'm sorry," she said softly, her voice shaking. "I haven't eaten in days. I didn't mean to steal." "That's no excuse," Daniel shot back. "You can't just sit down and take what doesn't belong to you." His tone was sharp, his words heavy with irritation. Layla's face burned with shame. She stood slowly, tears threatening to spill, whispered another apology, and walked out into the sun, leaving the plate half empty. Daniel dropped into the chair, his wallet now back in hand. But the sting of the moment lingered. Guilt tried to find a corner in his heart, but pride kept pushing it out. Later that evening, he called his girlfriend, Vanessa. They had plans to attend an exclusive high society party the next day. But Vanessa's voice over the phone was cold. "If you want me to go with you," she said, "send me 200,000 naira first." Daniel blinked in disbelief. "For what?" "Don't ask me questions, Daniel. You want me there or not?" She cut the call before he could answer. He sat back, frowning. He wasn't about to pay just to have her by his side. But the thought of showing up alone to that party was equally embarrassing. He needed a plan. Daniel sat in his living room that night, the ceiling fan lazily spinning above him, making a faint humming noise. Outside, the faint chorus of distant generators filled the air, that steady Lagos soundtrack whenever Nipa took light. He had just ended a call with Vanessa, and the words still stung. "Send me money if you want me to go with you." He slumped deeper into the worn leather sofa, his mind turning over the situation. The party was not just any random gathering. It was one of those high-profile Lagos events where politicians, business tycoons, and their well-polished families came to network. Everyone would be watching. He couldn't just walk in alone. The whispers would follow him for weeks. His phone buzzed with notifications from Instagram. Pictures from past parties flashed through his mind. Perfectly dressed couples, champagne flutes in hand, women in shimmering gowns, men in tailored igbatas and sleek suits. His chest tightened. He needed someone by his side, someone who would make an entrance with him. Then, a face flashed in his mind. Layla. That girl from the restaurant. The same girl he had shouted at without mercy. Even in her faded wrapper and worn slippers, there had been something arresting about her features. Her eyes had a sharpness, her cheekbones pronounced, her skin smooth under the dust. The thought made him chuckle bitterly at first. What kind of madness was this? Bringing a homeless girl to an event where champagne was served in crystal glasses? Where women's handbags alone cost more than a plot of land in Ikordu? The idea was ridiculous. But the longer he sat there, the more the idea grew roots. He could almost see it now. Layla, dressed in something elegant, her hair styled neatly, walking into the hall on his arm. People would stare, ask questions, and he could simply smile without explaining a thing. Of course, there was the small problem of convincing her. She would probably think he had gone mad. And there was pride to consider. After the way he had treated her, why would she even want to speak to him again? Still, Daniel knew Lagos life well enough to understand one thing. Money had a way of making people see reason. If the offer was right, she might just listen. And if she agreed, he would not only have solved his party problem, but he might even make a statement, the kind of move people would remember. By the time the wall clock struck midnight, his mind was made up. Tomorrow, he would go out and find her, no matter how long it took. The streets of Lagos were wide, but he was determined. The next morning, Daniel woke early, determined to track down Layla. The streets were already alive. Hawkers balancing trays of puff-puff, Okada riders zigzagging through traffic, and the occasional street preacher with a megaphone shouting about repentance. He started his search in Ojalegba, scanning familiar street corners and asking kiosk owners if they'd seen her. Most shrugged and shook their heads. He pushed on, walking under the hot sun, his shirt clinging to his back. After almost 2 hours, he spotted her near a roadside suya stand in Yaba. She was sitting on an upturned paint bucket, her headscarf faded and her eyes fixed on the ground as she absently fiddled with a plastic bottle cap. When she saw him approach, her eyes narrowed immediately. "You again?" Her tone carried both suspicion and irritation. Daniel raised his hands in half surrender. "Layla, I came to apologize for how I acted the other day." She folded her arms, unimpressed. "Apology accepted. You can go now." He cleared his throat and explained his idea. The party, the need for a date, how she would fit the part. She burst out laughing, shaking her head. "Oga, you must think I've run mad. Me? Go to one big Lagos party? Beg, leave me." Daniel paused, then played his trump card. Money. He mentioned the amount slowly, letting the numbers hang in the air like the aroma of fresh suya. Layla's laughter stopped mid-breath. It was enough to make her reconsider. "You know this is strictly business?" she said, finally. "Strictly business," Daniel replied. Daniel wasted no time. He took Layla to a boutique on the island, where the sales attendants looked her up and down before leading her to the gown section. She chose a fitted emerald green dress with gold detailing, simple yet regal. Next stop was the salon. The hairdresser undid her scarf, washed her hair in warm water, and carefully straightened it. Under skilled hands, her hair was swept into a sleek bun, and light makeup was applied to highlight her cheekbones and soften her lips. When Layla looked into the mirror, her jaw slackened. "Nami be this," she whispered, barely recognizing herself. That night, when Daniel came to pick her up, he stood frozen in the doorway for a few seconds. "Layla," he said finally, "you look incredible." The event hall in Victoria Island was bathed in warm light, the sound of jazz mingling with the hum of conversations. From a moment Daniel and Layla stepped through the glass doors, heads turned. Men adjusted their agbatas. Women whispered behind fans and wine glasses. Daniel introduced her simply as Layla, and she played her part flawlessly, shaking hands, exchanging polite greetings, and sipping champagne as though she had done it 100 times before. She noticed trays of small chops being passed around and managed to sneak a plate of samosas without losing her composure. Beneath her calm exterior, she was absorbing every detail. The glittering chandeliers, the scent of expensive perfume, the calculated laughter of wealthy Lagos socialites. By the end of the night, Daniel knew she had saved him from embarrassment. The next day, Daniel's father called him into his study. Pa Adeyemi was a towering man with a deep voice and little patience for excuses. "Daniel," he said, tapping his desk for emphasis, "it's time you got married. And until you bring a wife to this house, forget about inheriting my company." Daniel felt his throat tighten. The company was his birthright, but now there was a condition. As his father's words sank in, a familiar image came to mind. Layla, smiling faintly in that emerald dress. He picked up his phone later that evening and dialed her number. "I have another job for you," he said. "This one pays even better." He explained the plan. She would pose as his fiancée. She would get a furnished apartment, steady allowance, and all expenses taken care of. Layla was silent for a while. The offer was tempting, more than she could have imagined just a week ago. Finally, she agreed. On the appointed day, Daniel arrived at her new apartment. She stepped out in a flowing wine-colored lace gown, her geli tied with the precision of a master's hand. The Adeyemi family compound in Acadia was the kind of place that commanded respect. Carved wooden doors, hibiscus flowers lining the walkway, and enough space in the driveway to host a wedding reception. Layla greeted Pa Adeyemi in a warm, respectful tone, kneeling slightly as Yoruba culture demanded. Her soft-spoken answers, perfectly chosen compliments, and measured laughter began to win him over almost instantly. By the end of the evening, he was praising her to Daniel privately. "That's a good woman you brought home," he said, smiling. Mama Adeyemi, however, was less impressed. Her eyes followed Layla all through the weekend visit, noting every pause before a question was answered, every slight shift in her story. Something didn't quite add up. Layla felt the tension but didn't let it show. That night, she mentioned it to Daniel. He waved it off, insisting they just needed to keep the act going until the company transfer was finalized. But in her heart, Layla knew Mama Adeyemi was no fool. Meanwhile, Vanessa's curiosity had turned to suspicion. Her calls to Daniel went unanswered, and whispers from mutual acquaintances confirmed that another woman was in the picture. One hot afternoon, she marched to Layla's apartment and knocked sharply. When Layla opened the door, Vanessa wasted no time. "Stay away from my man," she said coldly. Layla leaned casually against the doorway, arms folded. "Your man? Funny, last I checked, he brought me to meet his parents, not you." The sting was sharp. Vanessa left humiliated, but not defeated. If she couldn't get rid of Layla directly, she would find someone who could. The next day, Vanessa was sitting in Mama Adeyemi's living room, telling her everything. The homeless background, the fake engagement, all of it. Mama Adeyemi's jaw tightened. She stormed into Daniel's office later that week, demanding answers. But when she told her husband, Pa Adeyemi surprised her. He didn't care about Layla's past. What mattered was her character, and he had grown fond of her. Later that evening, Daniel admitted something he hadn't planned to. Somewhere along the line, he had fallen in love with Layla. Pa Adeyemi encouraged him to tell her before it was too late. The next day, Daniel showed up at Layla's apartment, his heart pounding. They sat in the small living room, the hum of the fridge in the background. "I didn't plan for this to happen," he began, "but I've fallen in love with you." Layla smiled faintly. "I've been waiting for you to say that," she replied. They got engaged right there. Vanessa, realizing she had lost, left the country in quiet defeat. Months later, under the warm glow of string lights in the Adeyemi family compound, Daniel and Layla said their vows. From a dusty street corner to a place at the family table, Layla's journey had been anything but ordinary. And for Daniel, what began as a business arrangement had become the love of his life.